Welcome to Magical Storybook, a collection of children's stories from all around the world. Rumpelstiltskin. On the edge of a wood in a country far, far away ran a fine stream of water, and upon the stream stood a mill. The miller had a very beautiful daughter, and he was so proud of how clever she was, he would tell anyone that he met. But the miller sometimes got carried away with his stories, and one day, while the king was hunting in the wood, he told him that his daughter was so clever that she could spin straw into gold. Now the king was very fond of gold, and when he heard the miller's boast, he rubbed his hands together with greed. To the miller's shock, the king ordered the girl to be brought before him. She was then led to a chamber under the castle that was filled with straw. The only other thing in the room was a spinning wheel. The king ordered the girl to spin all of the straw into gold before the night was through. Otherwise, she would lose her life. Well, the miller's daughter begged the king for mercy and insisted that she did not know how to spin straw into gold, but the king slammed the chamber door and locked her in. "Before the night is through," he shouted as he walked away. And she was left alone. And when she looked at the straw and then looked at the spinning wheel, she began to weep. She was still sitting in the corner of the room crying when she heard a scraping noise. As she looked up, she saw one of the stone floor tiles moving to the side. Then suddenly, out popped a little man. He was the funniest little man you've ever seen. He had long pointed shoes and a long floppy hat. He was a hobgoblin. "Good morning to you," said the little man. "Why are you weeping?" Well, the miller's daughter was quite surprised to see this visitor, but she went on and explained that she must spin all the straw into gold before the morning, and that she did not know how. The hobgoblin said, "What will you give me if I were to do it for you?" The miller's daughter felt round her neck before answering, "My necklace! You can have my necklace!" The hobgoblin took her necklace and sat himself down at the wheel and began to spin. Round and round went the wheel, and as it did so, he began to sing to the sound that it made. Round about, lo and behold, reel away, straw into gold. The miller's daughter was so mesmerised that she soon fell asleep. When she woke up the next morning, the straw was gone, and so was the little man. But in the corner of the room were reels of pure gold. When the king unlocked the door and saw all the gold, he was overjoyed. But he still wasn't satisfied, and instead of setting her free, he took the miller's daughter to a second chamber that was filled with even more straw. And as she heard the door lock, she sat in the corner and wept once more. It was moments later that the little man appeared again, asking, "What will you give me this time if I complete your task?" The miller's daughter felt her finger and said, "My ring! You can have my ring!" The hobgoblin took her ring and sat down to work. And yet again he began to sing to the noise of the spinning wheel at work. Round about, lo and behold, reel away, straw into gold. In the morning when she woke, the straw was gone, and in the corner of the room were hundreds of reels of pure gold. The king was delighted, but he still didn't let her go. This time he took her to a huge palace ballroom filled with straw. the biggest you ever saw, and he said that if she were to spin all the straw to gold by the next morning, that he would marry her and she would become queen. But if she didn't, she would die. Then once more the door was locked and the miller's daughter found herself alone. Moments later, she heard a voice behind her which made her jump. It was her funny little friend. He asked what she would give him if he were to spin all the straw into gold for her this time. The miller's daughter thought about it for a few moments before declaring, "I have nothing left to give you." The little man looked at her and said, "Then promise to give me the first baby that you have when you are queen." "I may never become queen, and I may never have a baby. But if I don't agree, I'll die," she thought. So she agreed, and the hobgoblin sat down to work. In the morning, the king walked in to find the ballroom filled with reels of gold, and he was very happy. A wedding was organised, and the miller's daughter became queen. One day, a child was born to the king and queen, and they were very glad. But the queen had forgotten her promise to the little man. That was until he walked in to claim his reward. She begged him not to take her baby and started to wail loudly. She promised him all the wealth in the kingdom if only he would let her keep her baby. Eventually her tears softened his heart, and he said, "I will give you 3 days' grace, and if during that time you can guess my name, you can keep your child." The queen agreed, and all night she sat up thinking of all the odd names that she had ever heard, and she sent messengers all over the land to find many more. The next day, when the little man arrived, she began to guess names. "Is it Timothy? Ichabod? Benjamin? Jeremiah?" And she continued saying all the names that she knew. But to each of the guesses, the hobgoblin replied, "Madam, that is not my name." On the second day, she guessed all the funny names that she could think of. "Is it Bandylegs? Hunchback? Crookshanks?" she asked. But to each of the guesses, the hobgoblin replied, "Madam, that is not my name." On the third day, one of the messengers came back and said, "I travelled for 2 days, and I did not discover any new names. But when I was on my way back to the castle, I climbed a high hill, and I walked among the trees of the forest when I saw a little hut. And outside the hut burnt a small fire. And around the fire, a funny little man was dancing on one leg and singing a funny song. Merrily the feast I'll make, today I'll brew, and tomorrow I'll bake. Merrily I dance and sing, for tomorrow will a stranger bring. For little does my lady dream, that Rumpelstiltskin is my name." Well, when the queen heard this news, she jumped for joy and prepared for the little man to arrive. She invited the whole of the court to come and enjoy the fun that was about to happen, and the nurse held the baby as if preparing to give it up. When the hobgoblin arrived, he was laughing loudly at the thought of taking the queen's baby to live with him in the woods. And he cried out, "Now, lady, what is my name?" The queen pretended to be confused and said, "Is it John?" "No, madam," he replied. "Is it Tom?" "No, madam," he laughed once more. "Is it Jemmy?" "It is not, ha ha ha." And this time he rubbed his hands with glee. "Then could it be Rumpelstiltskin?" said the Queen slowly and smiling. The hobgoblin screamed. "A witch told you! A witch told you!" he yelled loudly. Then he stamped his foot so hard that it went right through the floor, and he needed to use both of his hands to free it. Then he stormed out of the castle. The whole court cheered, and the Queen said under her breath, "We wish you a very good morning and a merry feast, Mr. Rumpelstiltskin." And you can find more magical storybook tales at our website www.magical-storybook.com.